Before we get into this video, if you are new to the channel, welcome, and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Now let's jump into this video, the Spirit of Cain. For this lesson, I will be reading from the Antiquities of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 2, Paragraph 2, verse 60 and 61. And when Cain had traveled over many countries, he with his wife built a city named Nod, which is a place so called, and there he settled his abode, where also he had children. However, he did not accept of his punishment in order to amendment, but to increase his wickedness, for he only aimed to procure everything that was for his own bodily pleasure, though it obliged him to be injurious to his neighbors. He did not accept his punishment. So what was Cain's punishment? To be banished, to become a vagabond, a runaway in the earth. He also was marked with such upon him. So this was a punishment for Cain, being the first murderer, for shedding innocent blood, the blood of the righteous Abel. He was banished from the land in which he was brought up. Verse 60 says, in order to amendment. So he did not accept his punishment, his judgment, which was a righteous judgment. Cain's punishment was supposed to cause him to turn away from sin. His punishment was supposed to cause him to repent. His punishment was supposed to cause him to amend his evil ways. But he did the complete opposite. It says, but to increase his wickedness. So he only increased in his wickedness after his punishment by the Most High. Now we may look at Cain and say, how could he receive such a grievous judgment and yet not turn back to the Most High, and yet not turn back to his Creator? One may say, how could Cain receive such a harsh judgment and yet not repent and turn from his ways? Well, many of us as people have witnessed this in our own lives, in which we have been judged grievously and yet refuse to amend our ways, our actions. We have not turned from our wickedness. We did not get the message, so we continued doing as we wish. For he only aimed to procure everything that was for his own bodily pleasure. So Cain only aimed to procure anything or everything that was for his own personal satisfaction, for his own bodily pleasure. He was selfish, self-centered. It was all about him, what he wanted, what he desired. Anything that would involve in pleasure, that dealt in pleasure, Cain was involved in, though it obliged him to be injurious to his neighbors. Though in order to get these things, to procure these things, it obliged him, meaning it obligated him to be injurious to his neighbors. He had to harm his neighbors in order to procure these things for his pleasures, whether it be wealth, women, power, anything that Cain desired, he procured it. He gained it, but in order to achieve his goals, he had to be injurious to his neighbors. Cain had to be harmful to his neighbors. He had to be an evil person unto his neighbors. He had to be a murderer, a liar, a thief unto his neighbors. Even his own family. We must remember that this is not too far away from the original generations of the earth. These are still immediate family that he is harming and hurting in order to obtain wealth, riches, power. So he had to harm people, even loved ones, the people that were closest to him, to please himself. And that same spirit of Cain is operating in the earth today. When you see people in order to obtain which is pleasurable to them, to gain riches, wealth, to fulfill their bodily desires, they have to be injurious to their neighbors. They have to be injurious to others around them. They have to be harmful. They have to be murderers, deceivers, liars. That's the spirit of Cain operating within this earth today. Let's read verse 61. He augmented his household substance with much wealth by rapine and violence. He excited his acquaintance to procure pleasure and spoils by robbery, and became a great leader of men into wicked courses. He also introduced a change in that way of simplicity wherein men lived before, and was the author of measures and weights. And whereas they lived innocently and generously, while they knew nothing of such arts, he changed the world into cunning craftiness. So he augmented his household substance with much wealth. This is showing us the spirit of Cain that was already working within the earth long before the watchers came. This spirit was already active within the earth. The watchers are the class of fallen angels who sinned against God by sleeping with women and having children with them. These children were the Nephilims, the giants. Like I forementioned, Cain augmented his household substance with much wealth. This is showing us the spirit of Cain. So how did he do it? By rapine and violence. Rapine meaning to rob, to steal, to rape. These are all of the things that were occurring during the time of Cain. He advised his followers to procure pleasures and spoils by robbery, and became a great leader of men into wicked courses, wicked works. So not only did Cain himself operated in these evil ways, he also taught other men how to operate in these evil practices. This was a rebellion against God. Cain also introduced a change in that way of simplicity wherein men lived before, and was the author of measures and weights. And whereas they lived innocently and generously, while they knew nothing of such arts, he changed the world into cunning craftiness. So Cain changed the world into cunning craftiness. So there was a time in which mankind lived innocently. There was indeed a time mankind lived peaceably with each other. But when the works of Cain entered into the earth, it changed the world into cunning craftiness. Men became greedy, selfish, evil, workers of iniquity, lovers of pleasures. Back then, when the majority of men were feeling like they had been cheated, harmed, what did they do in order to deal with someone who had harmed them or someone who had cheated them? They then became violent to be made whole of their losses. So now the spirit of violence had overtaken the whole earth at this time. This was before the fallen angels came upon the earth. So when the fallen angels came with technology, science, and other things of that nature, the only thing they did was help mankind to become more skillful in his rebellion against the Most High. They taught mankind the use of weaponry to become better murderers. There were already murderers walking upon the face of the earth, but through the use of weaponry and this knowledge, they became better murderers. They developed much better ways to shed the blood of others. They taught women the use of certain acts to enhance their body, to enhance their beauty, to make them lustful. Now the spirit of fornication was already operating in the earth before that took place. But what the fallen angels taught helped these women become more skillful in their fornication. The teaching of herbs and things of that nature and the cutting of roots helped mankind to become more effective in his craft, in the things he would use to harm people. So that's what the fallen angels did, and that's no different than our times, where today we have the internet, which gives us more access to bodily pleasures. It makes mankind much more proficient in evil works, in fulfilling the lusts of the flesh, the desires of this flesh. So the spirit of fornication and lust just didn't come into existence in modern times. These spirits have been operating since biblical times. So there's nothing new under the sun. Mankind have not changed their evil ways, and we should not expect mankind to change, because we are told that as in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Before the flood, men have been sinning willfully. After the flood, nothing changed. They just got better at creating ways to sin against God. It all goes back to the spirit of Cain. That spirit is live and well, operating within this earth. The only way that we can overcome this evil spirit is to surrender our will to the Most High and to Christ. There is no other way, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. It's all spiritual. Cain obviously was being controlled by Satan after he killed his brother Abel. A darkness had overtaken him. Just like Cain, the evil one, there are millions of people worldwide who are being controlled by the spirit of Cain. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel so that you would not miss any upcoming videos. Be blessed always.